Recording in
So good evening, everyone. Actually, unfortunately, the recording which I made during the class has been deleted. So I'm re-recording this on today's practice session which we had. And so to reiterate what we have seen the last week is we have seen how to do a ER modeling diagram, and also we try to access some of the database which is already created. So it is basically different kinds of queries, and how to handle those database data and things like that. So joins and something. And this week we are going to see how we can create a database and tables, and how to what are the different data types are there and what are the constraints you can add. So these kinds of things we are going to see this week. So to start off, we are going to see it in DB browser for SQLite software, which is very easy to, explain. So, and also there is, you can utilize the other browser version also, which is very handy. Uh, but today we will see in this space. So I will just create a test database for today. And so if you create a database in DBSQLite, it will automatically give an option to create a table. You can either create a table in this way, or you can go to the execute SQL place and you can just start creating your create table statements. To explain it better, I will do it here. So we will create a student table. Okay. And I will add the fields. And before creating the table, I will try to explain what are the different constraints are there and what are the different other options are there. So you can see the field name, we can keep it like a roll number, and the roll number we consider it as an integer, is a number. So this is called not null, which is something like, for example, whenever a user is trying to update a data into the database, and if he is not updating that particular value, for example, in the student database itself, if I am not updating the student's information without a student ID, the database will throw an error like, this is a mandatory, a student ID is a mandatory field, you have to add it. So that is a for those kind of it will act as a constraint in order to test that situation. And as we discussed in our previous session, every table, it is not mandatory to have a primary key for each table, but it is the common practice and it is a best practice to have a primary key for each table. And so we will consider roll number as a primary key. And the one more feature with DB SQLite is auto increment. It is also in the other SQL servers, but according to the course, we are using SQLite. So uh, this has a feature called auto increment. For example, if you have a particular column, for example, here it is roll number. Consider a situation you are having a dump of 1,000, 2,000 data users. So you need to add the data into the table. In that situation, you don't need to add every time, okay, this is a user 289, this is a user 290. So SQL server will have that intelligence to automatically increment the data and it will store the value. So in order to test that also, we are trying to give that as a parameter in this table. And the last one is unique. As we know that it is nothing but, for example, we can take an example of a bank. Okay. So each, for example, I am having a bank account with one of the banks. So I have a bank account number. It should be unique to myself and it should not be same to others. So in that situation, we can tell, okay, bank account number should be unique. So where if a user is updating the data into the bank's website, If by mistake he is adding a user, I mean he's adding a bank account number which is same as other person, it will throw an error like the bank account number is already there if it happens by mistake. So that is a feature you can use. So default is nothing but for example, consider a situation where you are going where you are filling some kind of a form. Okay. And there are specific columns which we will not fill it usually. For example, you have asked about a comment for a product and you haven't written anything. To make the process simpler, they might add a field like, okay, no comment from the user in the backend. So whenever the user is not responding, the data will be uploaded as no comments. So in this kind of situation where the data is not necessary, but if it is having some field, it is better. So in that situation, maybe we can use the default. And check is one of the constraint where we can say uh, this particular column should have values or should have the text based on this condition. So for example, when you are creating a Facebook account or a Gmail account, not Gmail, maybe Facebook or other social media platform, it will ask for a particular condition whether your age is greater than 18 or not. So that is a typical example of this check condition. So if you type your age less than that, so it will throw an error like you are not eligible for that. So this kind of constraint we can do it in our backend through the database. And collation is, I haven't used it before. Collation I have read it is usually for string comparison or something, but for now it is not so important. And foreign key is I mean there are two keys. Usually we use in SQLite. One is the primary key, which is a unique identifier for a particular table, and foreign key is the reference for the other table. For example, I'm creating a table called student and I will create a table called university. Okay. For in the university table, I will tell whoever is studying, whoever is having the IDs between 1 and 50 or from this university, how do I match it? So I will tell these are the students who are studying in the university. I will create a reference like, okay, student ID should match with the university ID. So whoever may be the student would have studied in this university. So that is the link which we try to create. We will see with an example so that it will be easy for you. So I will create name field which is text, and the data types which are available in DB SQLite is there are 5 types of data types. One is the integer, which is very common we use. Text is nothing but the varchar which we use. The character string characters which we use in other ways or other SQL server or other programming language. And blob is nothing but saving that data as a binary. If you want to save some binary data 001 002 or something like that, you can use blob. Real is nothing but you can use it for decimal point numbers. So the floating points or decimal point numbers. And finally the numeric is having a special, I don't know, permission or something. Whatever data type you want to save, you can save it in numeric. So we can see that example also here. So name I will give as not null, and text, so I will give age is an integer, and I will check age should be greater than 18, and I will add phone number maybe, and I will say it's numeric just to test it. Okay, and I will create this table. So we will try to insert some data to that table. So in insertion there is this thing like, if you are not going to insert all the values in a column, all the values of a table, you can mention the column names and then the values. But if you are going to insert all the values of the table, you don't need to specify which column you are going to insert. So in this case, we are going to insert in all the columns, so we don't need to mention what column is what. Okay, so insert into student, roll number maybe 10, and the name maybe my name, and age I will give 20, and phone number maybe 999. Okay, so if I execute it, it will run like this. So we can select star from student. If you run it, it will show all the numbers. Okay, to test the age and the phone number and also the auto increment, we can try to insert another value. Okay, we will tell we will not tell the roll number here, we will give a different name, and I will put my age less than 18. Okay, here we are not adding all the columns, so I need to give the column name specifically so that the SQL server will understand what column is getting what values. Okay, so if I insert this, it will show me an error that check constraint failed, your age is not, your age should be greater than 18. So this is one of the use case which you can use whenever there is a need for this kind of a check on the data insertion level. And we will do another test. So for numeric, as I told, whatever maybe the data type you want to insert, this will insert into the table, it won't throw any error. So you can see it has inserted, and if you see the table, you can see. And this time we didn't add the roll number in I mean wantedly, because we need to check the auto increment. So you can see auto increment has been done, we didn't add any value here, it has been increased. And also the numeric case, so we have added text here, integer here, and the text here, and it has uploaded both. So these are the different conditions you can, different data types and different way of creating a table. So now we will create one more table, university. Okay, student ID, university ID, university name. Okay, then what we are going to do, we are going to tell that this student ID is a reference of the student ID which we created with the student table. So this is like kind of a link. So whoever may be the student, I mean, it is basically like the normalization concept. So for normalization, what we are trying to do, we are trying to separate the data, and we are trying to have a table which will display as minimal as possible. So whenever we need, we can join the multiple tables, and we can display the information whatever we want in a layman term. So here is the same case. So instead of adding the student detail and then university details in a single table, we are separating the student and university table, and we are telling them, okay, you can get all the student details when you match the student ID with the student table. So here we can say it's the foreign key is a student table, and the key to the student table is the roll number. Based on the roll number, so whichever student number is there, roll number is there from the student table, it will be a match to the university, also university table. So this is how you can create tables and also insert in SQLite. And one more thing, last time we missed this alter table. Okay, so alter table is nothing but you can uh, alter the tables column, like you can either add a column or you can remove a column or you can change a data type or whatever. So here I will say add address and I will tell its type is text. Okay, so I'll just run it. So it will just alter the table of student and I will just pick the table again to see what it has. You can see address as null because we didn't add for the first few. So this is one of the command which we missed last time. So alter table is one of the command. And in a similar way, if you are trying to uh, so similar way, if you are trying to create a table in SQLite browser version, you can just use create table and table name. Okay, and the parenthesis. Here you can give all the conditions, like for example, we will try to create the same student maybe, and we will tell ID it is an integer and it is a primary key and it is not null, and we will say name text or varchar or whichever is, this is universally accepted, so you better can use varchar. So we are just creating two columns, and maybe you can create one more table, teacher, teacher integer primary key and name varchar 50 and maybe fk student id integer, and then we can say foreign key. What is a foreign key? Here we are saying foreign key is a student id, and we are saying them this references which table, student table of which column, id. So this is how you can create two tables with reference with both the foreign key and the primary key. And now I will tell you what are the different things you have to note down when you are doing in SQLite. So there is a issue with the SQLite browser version. For one of the assignment, you guys have to do a cascading of table, which is not mandatory, but you have to do it. So for that, you have to add foreign key and on delete cascade or something. Okay, there is a we need to add the command to the table, so that what is the use of this on delete cascade means. So whenever a table data is deleted in whenever a data is deleted from a table, particular table, in this case, if you think, okay, there are 10 students, okay, I am deleting the details of 10th student because he is transferred to another university. So whatever the data or details of the students stored in different table, it has to be removed. Okay, so in order to achieve that, we will use on delete cascade, because if you don't use it, you have to delete manually by searching in each table what are the data available for that particular student. You have to keep deleting manually. So in order to avoid that situation, we use on delete cascade. But the strange thing is in SQLite DB browser, we need to typically this is in key. So this key will always be by default, it will be off. Foreign key will be off. If it is off, even if you add on delete cascade to a table, and if you try to delete the table data from one of the table, and if you see, it won't reflect. Okay, so in order to achieve that, before starting to execute some of the commands or deleting some of the data from the table, you just put a pragma foreign key on, so that your table data will be deleted according uh, to the value which we have. uh, okay, so that so this is one of the thing I need to tell you guys. So when you do on delete cascade in the browser instead of Moodle, but Moodle page will automatically do that, but whoever is trying external to the Moodle page, you can try it using this option so that it will work. And the other problem is Windows function. So you can see, I mean, there are some inbuilt Windows function SQLite will support, but unfortunately it won't support in our Moodle page. To show you guys, I will try to. So if you run the command, it will show you the version 3.2222. Okay, but Windows built-in function has been developed in the later version. Okay, so you can see here after 3.28 there are some Windows inbuilt function has been supported, but in only the version 3.25 it has been complete. I mean, it has been these kind of I mean, there are like count over overview and rank and something like there are a lot of inbuilt function which is supported by, and the partition and things like that supported by SQLite, but in a later version. But so that unfortunately, if you are trying to execute solve a problem using this kind of inbuilt function, it won't execute in the Moodle when you try to run. So that is one of the problem you have to take care of. And the next thing is about the views. So for views, before creating the view, try to create an SQL query for the view and try to see whether you are able to get the data or not, and then you try to create a view, so that you don't have to, I mean, recreate and drop and things like that, because I have received a mail regarding that. So try to create an SQL query first, then you create a view, so that it will be easy. And one more thing I need to show is, so so usually when we try to connect two tables, we can use two ways. One is through subquery and the other one is through joins. So I mean, it won't have any impact on the output if you can use both, but from the performance point of view and the readability point of view, try to use the join statement. Let me show you how what I'm trying to say. Select star from player comma ranking. If I give, it will give all the player and ranking information, uh, I mean, in whatever order it want it. This is also kind of a link, so you can see player ID, first name, last name, nationality, birth date, and the ranking table attached to it. But in a similar way, if you use inner join ranking, and if you don't give a on which condition, it will produce the same result. But the first method which we wrote is called subquery. Subquery is like you can just combine all the things and you can write where condition. And for example, I wrote like this, and I will write where player dot player ID equal to ranking dot uh, fk player ID. Okay, so if I do whatever player ID is matching with this a ranking table, it will display it. But at the same time, if you are going to add some more condition to streamline the data, you will be adding and or it will be too much of a confusion when you are reading yourself. So in order to avoid that, you can use inner join. So in this case, you can use inner join ranking on the same thing, player dot player id equal to ranking dot fk player id. Okay, this will also produce the same result, but it will be easy to read. And also one more advantage it has is when you are using a left join, the process in which it takes to find out the queries which you want will be even more faster when you do it using joins than using a subquery. So and now given the current situation, it won't have any major impact. But when you are handling data which is of 100,000 200,000 rows, using joins is much more efficient and fast compared to the subquery. So that is one thing I need to tell.